I'm going to show you some painting techniques for creating a blurry background or one color blending into another. I'm also going to show you some techniques to create texture like you would find in a bird's feathers or in animal fur. I'm going to start with the blending technique. So first off, obviously, you're going to use your 3 properties of color to match your colors. When you're blending one color into another, you must have them all mixed up and ready to go ahead of time. You can't blend the colors together once they are dry. So you see here, I've used one of the plastic lids and I've gone through my matching process. There's my test strip. And I have figured out in this area here what that color is, and the medium color and that dark color, and I've got them all ready to go. So when you're painting, it's a good idea to have a few different paintbrushes at your work area so that you have something to choose from. I'm going to use this brush because I think it's going to work for what I'm doing. Okay, when you are painting and you're trying to blend a lighter color into a darker color, start with your lighter color first. So I've got my lighter color mixed up here. I'm going to take some of it with my brush. Now you will see a difference in the way that I'm putting the paint on the paper from maybe what you're used to. Instead of stroking the paint on, I'm going to use a dabbing technique that is called stippling. And I'm going to dab the paint, kind of dabbing it on the paper. And I'm also going to be turning the brush like this as I do it, so that I don't end up with all the same size and shape brush stroke. Here's for that green part. Then I'm going to scoop up some of my medium value, start to dab that on, overlap it a little bit, and then my darkest value. Now, if you don't have kind of a spotted texture like this, then you don't want to leave it that way on your project. You're going to want to blend it, and here's how. After adding your color, dabbing your color on, while it is still wet, so you're going to have to work in small portions, rinse your brush, squeeze it out very dry, so you've just got a plain, clean brush. Now you're going to go over it with that same motion, working from your lighter value into your darker value, and you're just going to start to smooth out that texture. And you'll see now what you have is one color blending into another, which either gives you a look like you might have here where a color is blending into another color, or where you have a blurry background. Okay, second thing I'm going to show you is texture, and we're working with this kind of texture here on the bird's feathers. Once again, I've got my paint colors all mixed up and ready to go so that I'm not trying to blend any colors together that are dried out. So I am going to start with the kind of the lighter color first. If I look at this bird's feathers and it looks kind of speckly, I can see that there are lighter colors and there are some darker colors in here too. So I went through my mixing process. Here's my test strip to show it, to get the colors right first, and now I'm going to show you how to paint it on. So I'm using a brush like this, but I'm going to be using the skinny side of the brush, and instead of a dabbing motion, I'm going to use kind of a short slashing motion. So I'm going to get some paint on my brush, and just in the direction that the feathers go, I'm making some little slashes. Get more paint if you need it. Notice that I'm also leaving some spaces for my next color. Then I can start to fill in the gaps with my darker color. Same kind of motion, just a short slashing motion, filling in those light spots. If you're looking at it and thinking that's starting to get too dark, then go back into it with your lighter value again to start to fill in all those little white spots. You don't want any of the white spots showing if you don't have white in your picture. Okay, so that's pretty good for the texture. If you have a texture kind of like this, but you feel like it needs to be smoothed out a little bit, Then you're going to rinse out your brush, same as before. You've got a plain, clean brush, and just use that to blend out your texture a little bit so it doesn't look so polka dotty. So that would be for this feather texture. You would use very much the same kind of technique for the wolf fur here, except obviously you're going to be using different colors. For this area, you would be using very short brush strokes. For the longer fur, you're just going to be using longer brush strokes, making sure that you're getting the brush strokes in the direction that the fur goes. Any texture that you're going to come across in any of your pictures is either going to be this blending texture or dabbing texture like this where you don't blend it in, or this kind of slashing texture. And you can apply that to a lot of different things. If you're not sure on your own picture, then call me over and I can demonstrate for you. Always practice first on a test strip or a separate piece of paper. With the tempera paint, once it's on your project, you cannot layer over it and cover it up. It's kind of a one-shot deal. So always use your test strips, make sure you've got your colors right, and then also you can use that same test strip to practice the texture before putting it on your project.